cast yourself in a lead role. When a girl pronounces her own name, there is glory. When a woman tells her own story, she lives forever. All the women I know are perennials, marigolds, daffodils, soft things that refuse to die. I don't come from anything tamed or willing. I come from soil flossed with barbed wire, meaning abuela would cuss you out with the same breath she kissed you with. Her blood, a wild river. My mother doesn't rely on instruction manuals or men, nor does she equate the two. Can fix anything if you get out of her way. Says the best technology is her own two hands. But once I dreamed, I had no teeth, just a mouth to hold other people's things. If this poem is the only thing that survives me, tell them I grew a new tongue. Tell them I built me a throne. Tell them when we discovered life on another planet, it was a woman. And she built a bridge, not a border. Got God and named gravity after herself. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all to everybody at HIP for having me. Can we clap it up for all the organizers? And all of you for showing up. Poetry and art have always been the soundtrack to social movements. When the movement is strong, the poetry is strong, the art is strong. And so my job as a poet, other than to be myself, I think is really to document and name the moment. We rely on poets not just to narrate the world that we're in, but also to reimagine the world that we have, because we deserve something more than what we got right now, right? We deserve something better, and we can do it. I've said many times before that there is not a shortage of Latino voices. There is a shortage of Latino spaces, but not a shortage of Latino voices. So we're in a deep renaissance of art and poetry and Latinx and Latino poetry in this country. And when I think about the voices that are elevated, right, the voices that have access, that are brought into a room, I don't think that my mother's voice is included. And so I bring her with me today. I bring her with me every day. A 5'2" Boricua woman from Castañer, which is a little campo between Arjuntas and Lares, who did not have access to education, who started the second grade at 13 and only did a few grades. When we talk about the good work that's happening right now that all of us are trying to do, because I feel like we're all trying to do good work, we need to make sure that all of us are at the table and all of us are invited. It's all of us or it's none of us. And if we move through the world that way, then I think we have more opportunities to elevate everybody in community. So this poem is my way to elevate my mother, elevate our parents, my parents, who have very thick accents. And as a kid, a lot of people in positions of power would talk down to my mom because they heard an accent and assumed that she was not smart, that she was not capable, that she could be taken advantage of, right? And for those of us who are sort of been the buffers for our parents and the helpers, we've witnessed so much of that. So poetry can turn moments that make you feel powerless into moments that make you feel powerful, yeah? So this poem I dedicate to my mom and to some of you. There's a little bit of call and response. Y'all not gonna leave me hanging, right?
No.
Okay. There's too many Latino people in this room.
Yeah.
My mom holds her accent like a shotgun with two good hands. Her tongue all brass knuckles slipping in between her lips. Her hips are all laughter and wind clap. She speaks a sancocho of Spanish and English pushing up and against one another in rapid fire. Mira, there's no telling my mama to be quiet. My mama don't know quiet. Her voice is one size better fit all. And you best not tell her to hush. She waited too many years for her voice to arrive to be told it needed housekeeping. See, English sits in her mouth remix, so strawberry becomes strawberry, and cookie becomes a cookie, and kitchen, keychain, and chicken all sound the same. say yes, she says, aha. And suddenly the sky in her mouth becomes a Hector song. Her tongue can't lay itself down flat enough for the English language. It got too much hip, too much bone, too much conga, too much cuatro to two-step, got too many piano keys in between her teeth. It got too much clave, too much hand clap, got too much salsa to sit still. It, be an anxious child wanting to make Play-Doh out of concrete. English be too neat for her kind of wonderful. Her words spill in conversation between women whose hands are all they got. Sometimes our hands are all we got. And accents that remind us that we are still bomba, still plena. You say huepa, say huepa, say huepa. And a stranger becomes your hermano. Say dale, and the crowd becomes a family reunion. My mother's tongue is a telegram from her mother decorated with the coquis of el campo. So even when her lips can barely stretch themselves around English, her accent is a stubborn compass, always pointing her towards home. Thank you. I want to recognize all of the people, the crew, the staff that set up the tables. Can we clap it up for them? The people who prepared the food, the people who cleaned up after us, the people who set up the lights. I want to recognize all of you for being a part of this conference and this event. Your contributions are valuable, so thank you for that. You know, growing up in New York City, is there any New Yorkers in the house? I'm gonna stay out of that. Shout out to New Jersey always. If I could create a recipe, or if I had a big pot, I could put in ingredients of where I come from. You know, I would put in a lot of things, but one of them, if I thought back on my childhood and just growing up in the neighborhood, is I would put in the piragua, which is also known as a raspado, which is also known as a frio if you're Dominican, because we got a lot of names for basically the same thing. All of that to say, when people ask, when did I become a poet? I had a technical answer for them. But as I've gotten older, the first performer that I ever saw was my mama, was the piragüero, right? Were the musicians in front of the store. These everyday makers and artists and creators in our communities who are, I think, overlooked and underappreciated in the traditional sense, and who don't traditionally have access to institutionalized spaces, right? The piragüero, as I got older, as we know, was harder to find because of gentrification and displacement, right? We're being pushed further and further uptown. So this poem is my way to not just honor the piragüero who deserves, right? Because poetry says the person that you pass in the street every day that no one pays attention to, you deserve a poem. And you deserve a poem. And you deserve to be recognized and seen, right? And elevated. But this is also about honoring workers, people who, like my parents, who work with their hands. Everyday people who work with their hands and who are often criminalized for being working class and being poor. So this is a conversation about these creators, these artists, right? And how can we make sure that if we inherit a world that is by design unjust, then that means we have to be intentionally committed to redistributing wealth and power in this country. If we inherit a world that by design, if we do nothing, this is how it's going to be, then we have to be intentional, right? Which is what our commitment is, right? To redistributing power. Well, to me, that's a redistributing of who we pay attention to and whose work is worthy. Whose work is worthy. So shout out to the piragüero. Oh, piragüero, my first lover. The only man I ever wanted anything from. I sprinted half blocks for you, got off the bus 2 stops early, took the long way home just to see your rainbow umbrella. Oh, piragüero, candy cool syrup god. Boricua Batmobile, wooden cart pushing, bobsled Bobby. When the viejitas asked for the 10th time whether I got un novio, the clothes... The closest name on my tongue was you. Who else made me break my neck in two? Who else gave me so much for $1? Whose honor did I defend when they called your island delicacy snow cone? Or worse, shaved ice? I trusted you. The hallelujah work of your bare hands, the dirty white kitchen towel you laid over a fat block of ice, and never once did I ask you questions. And when they pushed you off 9th Ave, when you packed up on 96, I only saw you after ball games on 131st and 5th, when the hipsters threw ice in paper cups, added nutmeg and real ingredients like mint leaves. Call this an upscale makeover for a poor man's treat. I wanted to shout out, no! Leave my man alone. Tell me, who else could turn a blue shopping cart into a 57 Chevy? Or a mom and pop shop? Maybe the elotero on El Centro, the chudo ladies by the A train. Maybe my mama, once the nanny, who sewed curtains for a couple upstairs, made an office out of her hands. Like my pops, who cut his saxophone until the velvet flesh of night rearranged the altitude of a palladium dance floor, and then a plump wad of cash, a worn rubber band, a 401k shoebox, which is to say, praise everything we build under the table. The underworld of workers and wielders, America's thumping bass line, the chorus of a country where 2 for 1 is the best hook to every good song I know. Like the way you turn my tongue into a red carpet, like the first woman I ever loved. Oh, piragüero, you winter, my whole mouth. You conductor of cool. You're the only one I know, the only one who can govern the thick heat like a DJ scratching a glacier. You make the whole city rock. I have one more poem for you all. Thank you all for being here. An exciting program today. As much as every new day feels like a rupture, as much as there is more divisiveness now in my lifetime than I have ever seen before, there is also a deep renaissance of social justice activists and organizers and artists and disruptors and resistors on the ground working every day. And as much as I want to lean, or it might seem like a more comforting place to lean into my despair, I am way too focused and invigorated by the youth leadership in this country. Our young people are not settling. Anybody who's worked with I love working with young people. When young people land on an idea that they believe in, they do not take no for an answer. They do not care about your reasons. They care about righteousness. Yeah? I am invigorated by the undocumented students in this country. I'm invigorated by the students in Philly and Chicago and Baltimore who preceded the students in Parkland, right? Yeah. We should be celebrating them as well and giving them all the resources that they deserve. There should be GoFundMe campaigns. And let me just say that there are young people who did essentially the same kind of protest who are in jail now, right, for that, yeah? So think about all of us. Poetry has the ability to reimagine, not just, like I said before, not just the world that we've inherited, but also the world that we deserve. So when I think about justice, when I think about activism, that's just us imagining together and then putting our bodies and our resources into an action plan, yeah? So poetry can facilitate some of that reimagining. So when I met this Latina woman who works at NASA, and I had questions, okay? Are we alone? I need to know, right? This is a true story. And I sort of start picking her brain and said, you know, she wasn't afraid. I said, all right, if you're on this other planet and you see something that you think is alive, what would you do? And she said, I would just sit next to it. I wouldn't bottle it up. I wouldn't name it and take it back to earth with me and act like I discover it, like because I found it, which is like the legacy of white supremacy, right? Like I found it, it's mine, I get to name it, right? She said I would just sit next to it. I said, if you could ask this thing one question, what would you want to know? And she said very seriously, I want to know how they coexist because we don't know how to. And it changed my world in the way that I sort of was looking so myopically at the moment we're in. It sort of zoomed me out to think broader. This poem was written after that conversation. And a few months later, NASA announced the discovery of 7 Earth-sized planets, 3 of which are in the habitable zone, all of which could have water. And so this poem is sort of a meditation on what these other planets, what wisdom can they give us about building a world that is just and equitable and that is fair and that celebrates all of our voices no matter where we come from. Yeah? There are organizers I'm an organizer at Poets for Puerto Rico. That was created after the hurricane. There are organizers at Juntos, organizing with undocumented students. And so this is stuff that we talk about all the time. How can we reimagine this work? And more so than that, make sure that folks have access to these spaces. So this is an open letter to the 7 new planets. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your love and your attention. Last thing, I know I'm over time, but I have to say this. As we do good work, we also have to lovingly call each other in. And so these planets challenge me. This is not a pat on the back. This is me saying, I don't know. Yeah? And so maybe that's also a good place to be. An open letter to the 7 new planets after the election. Tell me, dear friends, are the stars still soft where you are? Is honey the currency of your kind? Does justice trend in your solar system? Do you laugh at our man-made boundaries? Shake your head puzzled by our papers? How in all our movies you fly to us in some spaceship bedazzled with bright lights, and each time our people are fighting, yet we call you alien. I'm sure you've seen our news. A flood of scandal episodes turned into actual scandal episodes. A series of words trickle across a screen. A ban, a bomb, a border. Do you find these things unholy? Because everyone in the world is always a citizen of it. Because everywhere we breathe is home. Tell me, what are your songs? Does your music wake the dead? Do you make tradition out of feeding the hungry? Do your laws say love is the only job we got? Tell me, you have different problems. Like how to kiss this many beings all at once. Like how to travel the distance of touch. Like how every day feels like a holiday when all your traffic jams turn into jam sessions. See, here on earth, we know a thing or two about making good music, right? Have you seen our people march and clap and pray and praise? How a hand can become a fist. How a fist can become an anthem. How an anthem can become a choir, slow dance into a freedom song. Have you seen our street corners, huh? Where bodegas sit like churches. Where crowds hold talent show with bucket drum and break dance. May that be the soundtrack of this movement forever. Have you ever seen a man fly from the free throw line? Camera flashes popping like hot grease. His legs scissoring through the sky. And after that, we were never the same. And after that, we discovered each other a new God. And I'm sure you wonder how we got all this air and still can't some of us breathe. This is what you show us, dear friends. That this mess is our making. That there's a better word than conquer. That liberation is a sweeter song when all the people can sing it. That the closest son we got is each other. And we build us a new world. And we build us a new world. And maybe one day you'll write back a love letter and say, my God, I do see signs of life. Thank you so much.